My name is Lucia, and for most of my life, I believed my past was simple. A quiet childhood, a caring mother, a family that didn't talk much about before, but I never questioned it. Until one sentence changed everything. It happened at a family dinner. Nothing dramatic, no fight, no tension. My aunt laughed and said casually, "Your mom was so strong back then, after everything she hid." Hid. That word froze the room. I looked at my mother. She didn't laugh. She didn't correct her. She didn't even look at me. She just went silent. That silence was louder than any confession. Later that night, when everyone had gone to sleep, I asked her, "Is there something about my past I don't know?" She smiled. Too fast, too controlled. "No, Lucia," she said, "you're just overthinking." But I couldn't sleep, because lies spoken gently still feel like lies. The next morning, I started searching. Old boxes, documents, a locked drawer I had never been allowed to open. And inside it, a folder with my name on it. But the dates were wrong. The signatures didn't match. And the name listed as my legal guardian was not my mother. My hands started shaking. Because this wasn't a small secret. This wasn't protection. This was a life rewritten. And the most terrifying part? Everyone in my family knew. Everyone except me. And in part 2, you'll hear what the hospital confirmed, why my mother begged me to stop asking questions, and the moment I realized the truth about my past was never meant to find me. I didn't confront my mother again that day. Not because I believed her, but because I could feel it. If I pushed too hard, she would shut down completely. So instead, I went somewhere she never expected. The hospital. The one listed on the papers I found. I told myself it was just to clear a doubt, just to calm my mind. But deep down, I already knew. At the records desk, I gave my name, Lucia. The woman typed slowly, paused, then frowned. "Are you sure this is the right spelling?" she asked. I nodded. She turned the screen slightly away from me and said, "One moment." That moment felt like an hour. She came back with a thin file, older than me, yellowed at the edges. And then she said something that made my chest tighten. This file was sealed. It was reopened once, about 12 years ago. Reopened? By who? I asked whose name was listed as my biological mother. She hesitated, then answered. It wasn't the woman she raised me. I felt dizzy, like the floor wasn't solid anymore. I asked the next question without breathing. Why was it sealed? The woman looked at me with pity and said, "Because the family requested it for your protection." Protection. That word again, the same excuse people use when they want control. I left the hospital in silence. When I got home, my mother was waiting for me, sitting at the kitchen table, hands folded, eyes red. She knew. She whispered, "You went to the hospital, didn't you?" I asked her one thing, just one. Why did you lie to me my entire life? She broke. She cried like I had never seen before. Not quiet tears, not controlled ones, desperate ones. She said, "I was trying to save you." From what? That's when she told me the part of the story she never wanted me to hear, that I wasn't supposed to stay, that I was meant to disappear from a situation far darker than I imagined, that keeping me meant cutting someone else out forever, someone powerful, someone dangerous, and someone who still thought I didn't exist. That's when fear replaced confusion, because suddenly this wasn't just about my identity. It was about why my existence had to be hidden. and why, after all these years, the truth was starting to surface now. In part 3, you'll hear the name my mother refused to mention out loud, the call I received that night, and why I realized my past wasn't buried. It was waiting. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside felt louder. Every shadow felt closer. My mother's words kept replaying in my head. You were never supposed to be found. Around 2:17 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. A man's voice came through. Calm, slow, controlled. "Lucia," he said. My blood froze. I hadn't told anyone my name. Not the hospital, not anyone outside this house. I asked, "Who is this?" He paused, then replied, "Someone who has been waiting a very long time for you to exist." I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the phone. Seconds later, a message came through. An address, a date, and one sentence. "You deserve to know who you really are." I ran to my mother's room. She was awake. When I showed her the message, her face went completely pale. She whispered a name I had never heard before, a name tied to money, influence, and a scandal that had been quietly erased years ago. She told me the truth she had buried the deepest. My biological father wasn't just someone from the past. He was a man whose reputation depended on pretending I never existed, a man whose career would have collapsed if the truth came out. When I was born, there were two options: erase me or hide me. My mother chose the only option that kept me alive, but it cost her everything: her marriage, her safety, her freedom. She told me she changed documents, moved cities, cut contact with everyone who knew. And then she said something that made my stomach drop. "You tried to find you once, about 12 years ago." That was when my file was reopened. That was when she realized the past was still watching. I asked her the question I was afraid to ask. Does he know now? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The message on my phone answered it for her, because someone out there had my name, my location, and they were no longer hiding. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to run, I wasn't going to hide, and I wasn't going to let other people control my story anymore. If the truth was dangerous, then it was time to face it. Because whatever my mother had been protecting me from for 30 years, it had finally caught up. And in part 4, everything comes out. The meeting, the confrontation, and the moment I discover why my family was never the only one involved. Because the biggest lie about my past wasn't who my mother was. It was who my father really is. I went to the address alone. No friends, no family, no backup. Just me and 30 years of unanswered questions. The building wasn't dramatic. No guards, no luxury, just an ordinary office tower in the middle of the city. That scared me more than anything, because secrets don't hide in obvious places. On the 14th floor, a woman in a gray suit was waiting for me. She knew my name, she knew my age, she knew things about my childhood that only my mother should have known. She led me into a quiet room and said one sentence that changed everything. You weren't hiding to protect you, you were hiding to protect them. Then she slid a file across the table, my file. Birth records, medical history, legal documents, and one paper stamped in red. Trust beneficiary, primary. I stared at it, confused. She explained slowly. My biological father wasn't just powerful, he was untouchable. For decades, his family controlled companies, media, and people. And years ago, a scandal almost destroyed them. Not because of money, not because of crime, because of me. I wasn't a mistake, I was proof. Proof that he had lied publicly, proof that contracts were signed under false identities, proof that his empire was built while pretending I never existed. When I was born, lawyers intervened. They offered my mother silence in exchange for safety, a new identity, and one condition: I could never be acknowledged. But laws change, people die, and secrets age badly. My father had recently fallen ill, and suddenly that old agreement was no longer secure. If he died without acknowledging me, everything would surface. That's why the contact happened now, not out of love, out of fear. They wanted me to sign a document, a final silence, permanent, in exchange for money. A lot of money, enough to disappear forever. I asked one question: what happens if I don't sign? The woman didn't hesitate. Then the truth becomes public, and it will destroy more than one family. That's when I understood. This wasn't just my story, it was theirs. And for the first time in my life, I had leverage. I stood up and said something my mother never could. I'm done being hidden. I didn't expose him online, I didn't sell the story, I didn't scream. I did something quieter. I hired my own lawyer, filed a claim, and let the system do what silence never did. Weeks later, my family finally understood why my mother had lied, not to control me, but to keep me alive. The truth came out, carefully, legally, undeniably. The empire didn't collapse overnight, but it cracked. Public statements were made, names were adjusted, histories rewritten. And my name? It was added, not erased. My mother cried when I told her, not because she was afraid anymore, but because she didn't have to lie again. Today, I don't hate her. I understand her. She didn't steal my past. She carried it alone. And as for the man who tried to erase me, he never spoke to me directly. He didn't need to, because the truth doesn't ask for permission. It arrives when it's ready. And once it does, no one controls it anymore.